We're from the League of Women Voters, Solano County.
We've created this video to help you register to vote,
so your voice can be heard in our democracy.
The League of Women Voters has been around for 100 years, and our organization was instrumental in getting women the right to vote.
Our group is a nonprofit organization that welcomes and includes men and women, young and old.
Incluimos a todos los vecinos y vecinas que quieran ser voluntarios, sin excepciones. We seek to include all of our neighbors as members and volunteers, no exceptions.
We are non-partisan. That means we don't support or oppose any political parties or candidates that are running for office.
Main purpose is to register people to vote, to provide nonpartisan information about elections, and to really encourage people to vote. The League also advocates on certain issues, but only after thorough study and debate.
In this video, we want to encourage you to be an active voter.
We're going to share the importance of voting.
It's valuable to you.
It's valuable to your family.
It's valuable to your community.
and it's valuable to our country.
Voters have choices.
Los votantes toman decisiones. Voters make decisions.
Voters make a difference.
You have to register before you can vote.
That's why we're here today, to help you get you registered to vote.
Here's the most important part. If you are a citizen of the United States, you can register to vote when you are 18 years old.
But you can also pre-register at 16 or 17 years old.
Puedes registrarte en línea cuando tramites tu licencia de conducir a través de DMV o enviando tu forma por correo. You can register online through the DMV when you get your driver's license, or on a paper form to mail in.
So, let's get started.
We stand on the shoulders of those who paved the way. The right to vote was not automatic. Voting rights have changed through the years in America. To really appreciate how important voting is, we need to understand how the heroic actions of people in the past have made voting possible for all of us.
We share a timeline that highlights a few of the key events that led to full voting rights for all American citizens. Step by step, more and more citizens were recognized to have the right to vote. And sometimes those rights had to be protected even after they were legally granted.
The journey began after the Revolutionary War. The right to vote was granted through the Constitution of the United States to white, land-owning Protestant men who were 21 years of age or older.
The next major change did not occur until after the Civil War in 1868. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution granted citizenship and voting rights to all men born or naturalized in the United States. Black men were now allowed to vote, but some states failed to recognize this right for Black men.
The 15th Amendment clarified voting rights, trying to guarantee voting for all Black men. But some states then used poll taxes, literacy tests, fraud, and intimidation to prevent them from voting.
In 2020, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution in 1920, though those rights did not extend to Black women. The League of Women Voters was one of the organizations that worked to pass the 19th Amendment.
Native Americans were granted citizenship and the legal right to vote in 1924. These rights, however, were not granted in some states, in defiance of federal law. In 1947, court decisions in New Mexico and Arizona required those states to comply with the federal laws giving the right to vote to Native American citizens. Sadly, some other states did not comply until 1972, and recently some are still being challenged in a few states.
Restrictions that prevented Asian Americans from voting were lifted in 1952 when the McCarran-Walter Act granted Asian Americans citizenship and voting rights.
The Civil Rights Movement was a decades-long struggle by African Americans and their like-minded allies to end systemic racial discrimination, disenfranchisement, and racial segregation in the United States, and continues to this day.
Led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, Whitney Young, and others, the social movement's nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience campaigns eventually secured new protections in federal law for the rights of all American citizens, beginning with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This act ensured all men and women 21 and older have the right to vote.
The 26th Amendment to the Constitution reflected the shift in beliefs of many Americans when protests throughout the country highlighted the concern that young men were able to be drafted to fight in the Vietnam War, yet were unable to vote. In 1971, largely because of the Vietnam War, the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18. You are now able to pre-register to vote when you are 16 and vote when you're 18.
After 50 years, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was up for renewal, but because of actions by Congress and the Supreme Court, only parts were renewed, which has allowed some voter suppression actions to be reinstated in parts of the United States.
John Lewis, a civil rights icon, reminds us the vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have. Voting is both a privilege and a right. And today we stand on the shoulders of those who have paved the way for us to have this right.
For the last 50 years, the generation known as the baby boomers have dominated voting, as shown by the chart here, based on the 2016 presidential election. Voting by the baby boomers started declining in 2016 as voting by millennials increased.
In 2020, 58% of eligible voters were younger than baby boomers. Going forward, they can be the deciders for our cities, our counties, our states, and our nation, if they vote.
That's right, friends. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Our kind of government requires participation in order to work right. And voting is a universally recognized way to include citizens as active participants in making their own decisions.
Even though the right to vote is essential to the health of our democracy, Americans have a historically poor record of voting. Let's look at some recent numbers for California voters.
En las elecciones presidenciales de 2016, el 78% de personas elegibles en California se registraron para votar. In the 2016 presidential election, 78% of eligible California voters registered to vote.
59% of eligible voters actually voted.
So this means that 41% of the eligible voters did not vote. They chose to let the 59% be the deciders.
Aaron Sorkin wrote this line for the TV show West Wing: "Decisions are made by those who show up." We think this pretty well sums up the importance of voting in our democracy. Be a decider, show up to vote.
Your vote is your voice. And if you don't vote, then no one is hearing you. You can't really complain. You have no basis because you did not go out and vote. No one can really find a candidate that's perfect top to bottom. But I guess you gotta sit down, really look at the issues, and make your best choice.
Historically, in Solano County, we have many examples of close election contests where the candidate won by just a handful of votes. Your vote counts. Just one vote can make a real difference.
Here you see a diagram of the three branches of our federal or national government as defined by the Constitution of the United States. Your vote can actually affect each of these important branches of our government.
You can choose who is going to represent you to make our laws in the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's the legislative branch.
You can choose who will lead our country as the president and vice president to carry out our laws as the executive branch.
By making the choices for Senate and President, you also indirectly choose the justices and judges who interpret our laws. That's the judicial branch.
Your vote, or lack of it if you don't show up, affects all levels of government. When you are registered to vote, you will be able to vote in every election, in your city, your county, your state, and of course in our nation. Your vote has a direct effect on your life in many ways.
Once you are registered and an election approaches, you will receive a sample ballot in the mail that lists all the specific candidates, measures, and propositions that are available to you where you live.
In addition to a sample ballot, you will receive a copy of the official voter information guide in the mail from the Office of the California Secretary of State prior to the election. This slide shows you an example of the guide from the 2020 general election. It includes details about the propositions on the ballot, how to find your polling place, how to vote by mail, frequently asked questions, and lots more. This information is important so you can consider how you will make your choices before you go to your polling place or fill out your mail-in ballot.
Other unbiased voter resources are available to all voters in California as well. Voters Edge is a nonpartisan website maintained by the League of Women Voters. It lists all of the candidates on the ballot and their basic information and priorities. Millions of Californians use the site to investigate and evaluate the candidates and propositions on their ballot before voting. MapLight is a nonpartisan site that reveals the sources of monetary support for each candidate's campaign.
Of course, you're ready to get registered right now, but are you actually eligible to register to vote in California? You must be a United States citizen and you must be a resident of California. You also must be 18 years or older on Election Day.
You cannot be currently serving a state or federal prison term for the conviction of a felony. You cannot be currently found mentally incompetent to vote by a court.
If you're not 18 years old yet, you might be eligible to pre-register to vote. You must be 16 or 17 years old. And you must meet all the requirements to be fully registered in California.
Pre-registration does not change the voting age, which is 18 years old. Instead, it allows eligible Californians ages 16 or 17 to complete the needed forms in preparation for voting. So the registration becomes active immediately once they turn 18 years old.
Once you are registered to vote, you will never have to do it again, unless you move, change your name, or wish to change your party affiliation. Anytime during your life, if you move or change your name or wish to change parties, you must re-register with this new information.
The quickest and easiest way to register or to pre-register is using the California Secretary of State website online form. You can use the web address of www.registertovote.ca.gov on a desktop or laptop computer, or use this QR code with a mobile device.
You can also register to vote using the paper form. These forms are available at libraries, post offices, DMV offices, and the Solano County Registrar of Voters office in Fairfield. Please note that in order to register using the online form or a paper form, you will need access to your California driver's license number or your California ID number or the last 4 digits of your social security number. Some information is required, while other information is optional. Be sure to complete all required fields.
You can choose how you want to vote on either the online form or the paper form. It's easy and convenient to vote by mail, and postage is paid. You can also choose to go to your local polling place on Election Day to vote. The address of your polling place will be indicated on your sample ballot.
Do you prefer one political party over all the others? If you do, and you want to be associated with that political party, this is your chance. Early in presidential election years, you'll receive a special primary ballot. This ballot is for those who are affiliated with a particular party. This is the election where you get to decide who you want to be nominated for president by your political party.
Or you can also choose to register with no party preference. This means you don't affiliate with any political party. With the no party preference choice, your primary election ballot will not have a section with candidates to be nominated for president. Everything else is the same.
Thank you for being so attentive, listening well, and registering to vote. If you are interested in joining the League of Women Voters to help others register to vote, just email us at lwvsolano@gmail.com.
So that's it. Get busy. Be a decider. Register, learn, and vote.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters Solano County, thank you for being interested in democracy. Remember these two things.
Democracy is not a spectator sport.
Decisions are made by those who show up.
Be a decision maker. Be a part of the decision to elect representatives that look and think like you. Our representatives should reflect the diversity of our lived experiences, and the only way to make that happen is to register and vote.
The League's mission is rooted in the notion informed citizens are democracy's best defense. Therefore, as an organization, it strives to provide civic education that strengthens citizenship. So keep in mind this motto, the League's motto: democracy, a government that is of, by, and for the people, is not a spectator sport. Commit to do your part to make sure you understand how government works, as well as the role you must play to make sure your democracy, our democracy, works for all.